She stood there amid the shooting range thick with gunpowder smoke. She was patching the wall with trembling hands, not from fatigue, but from the scornful stares of the SEALs. Lena Carver, an anonymous technician, always viewed as no one, just a shadow in the Mojave Desert at 29 Palms. But when a SEAL unexpectedly placed a rifle in her hands, the entire room fell silent. What lies behind her resolute gaze? Hit subscribe to uncover the story that will make you believe everyone harbors an astonishing secret. Who is she, really? A shaft of blinding sunlight slashed across the crack in the concrete wall, painting a thin beam of light like a sword's edge. The sharp report of rifles echoed across the Mojave training grounds, and every time a weapon recoiled, a cloud of dust exploded skyward, testifying to the day's searing heat. Amid a landscape seemingly forged for brutality, Lena Carver bent low, nodding in time with her small hammer as she tapped polymer clay into the fracture. Beneath her hands, the rough-hewn wall seemed to breathe new life, an anonymous miracle wrought by meticulous care. Her gray t-shirt clung to her back like a second skin, each bead of sweat searing with salt. At the pocket's edge, the badge reading Maintenance Tier D swung listlessly, indifferent to the passing SEAL warriors. To them, only mission and rifle mattered. To Lena, every fissure told a story. Each crack in the wall was more than the mark of a bullet or the shard of a shattered gas can. It was a silent record of those who dared face death. No one knew that beneath her quiet exterior, Lena had once been a wartime engineer. The eagle tattoo, perched on the left side of her wrist, was usually hidden beneath a long sleeve, but at times it gleamed like a reminder of a past she'd been forced to leave behind. Here at 29 Palms, she'd chosen to become a shadow, letting others shine amid the smoke and flame. That invisibility, to her, was the greatest freedom. Freedom to repair instead of destroy, to heal the smoldering wounds rather than inflict new ones. Footsteps drifted away behind a row of rusted containers. Lena looked up. Her dark eyes flashed with razor-sharp focus. She revealed no emotion, yet inside her heart pounded faster as she thought of fallen comrades, those who had fallen in drills just like this. Sweat still trickled down, mingling with grime and the crackle of gunfire to form a stifling desert symphony. She scooped a spoonful of polymer compound and spread it smoothly across the concrete surface. Her gaze followed each crevice as if she were reading a silent testament left by flying bullets. When she set her trowel aside, she inhaled deeply and closed her eyes to savor the moment's sounds. The insects fluttering against the perimeter fence, the wind tugging at the guard's scarf, her own heartbeat. In a world of chaos, such a pause was the rarest luxury. Maintenance, Tier D. The invisible label stamped on her chest made people forget Lena Carver existed at all. Few realized it was her hands that had sealed the wall shielding the command center, her skill that had patched the chilled air vent, saving the common room when the desert night lost its warmth. She embraced her Tier D title like an invisible armor, shrouding her from curious eyes, granting her the chance to keep a far greater secret than this crack. When the sun climbed overhead, the desert's heat rippled like waves, blurring the wall's edges. Lena wiped her brow, gently traced the faded tattoo on her wrist, and offered a slight, resolute smile, one that fortified her own spirit. In each silent instant, she reminded herself, to be profoundly present, sometimes one must become unseen by others, and that very invisibility would allow her to guard her most precious secrets, secrets that only this newly mended concrete would be strong enough to hold. All right, before you settle in, take a sec to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're genuinely vibing with what I'm putting out here. And drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always a thrill to see who's joining us from all corners of the globe. A whisper of cold air drifted from the water cooler, tracing thin veils of mist through the air like ghostly smoke. Outside, the desert sun blazed relentlessly, yet this slender curtain of chill left only a shadow on the faces of the young seals gathered there. They clustered around the machine, their laughter tinkling like mischief in the stifling heat. "She's probably some plumber hired through connections," one soldier jeered, his tone brimming with self-satisfaction. Another peer rolled his helmet between gloved hands, eyes narrowing as though appraising a specimen. "With hands as slender as that, I bet she used to teach yoga." Their mocking voices curled around Lena Carver's ears, but she did not flinch. Pinned behind her protective goggles, she leaned close to the concrete wall, her gaze fixed on the fissure before her. Her arms moved with the finesse of years spent refining a craft, so much so that the fabric of her gloves was threadbare, yet she knew any sign of hesitation might give them ammunition. A discarded pistol clattered onto a nearby metal crate, its magazine rattling like loose change across the dusty floor. Lena ground her teeth, pressed her lips together in silent resolve, but did not turn her head. She understood all too well that the loudest mouths often sought to fill their own insecurity with insults. Her fingertips glided over the crack, guiding the white polymer compound, smooth as molten glass, into every crevice until it hardened in place, sealing the break. Under her hands, the wall was no longer inert stone. It bore the memory of bullets that had whizzed past, of training drills across the endless sands, even of the ragged breaths stifled by tightening safety harnesses. Lena felt the concrete's subtle tremor beneath each fingertip, as if it whispered, "Heal me, the way you've healed so many souls." The taunts faded, swallowed by a stillness thick with drifting dust. She inhaled deeply, tasting hot metal and sweat tinged with burning rubber. In that breath, she remembered the faded tattoo hidden beneath her long sleeves, an eagle, wings outstretched, calling to mind days when she was more than an anonymous repair technician, when she bore the rank of wartime engineer, entrusted with mending radar arrays and heat sensor fuses in the heart of tropical jungles. Now, her gray t-shirt was soaked through and speckled with grains of sand that clung to every seam. She remained silent, letting the wall's restoration speak for her. The two words on her silver badge, maintenance, Tier D, glinted weakly under the halogen lights, as if smirking at the ignorance of the young soldiers. They didn't know that the same hands bearing that humble title had saved this base countless times, patching the oxygen line to the common quarters during a freezing desert night, restoring the emergency power circuit when a sudden sandstorm struck without warning. One of the men flung his helmet so it bumped lightly against her back, sending fragments of mortar tumbling onto her shoulder. He raised an arrogant brow. "Hey, why don't you show us who you really are?" The soldier's smug grin faltered when Lena slowly lifted her gaze. Her dark eyes suddenly gleamed with a light that captured the harsh desert sun and flung it back tenfold. She rolled her sleeve up, ripping away the fabric shield to reveal the faded eagle inked on her wrist, its beak poised skyward, wings splayed against an endless blue. Silence stretched out once more. A desert breeze whispered through the open doorway, carrying away the last echoes of laughter, leaving only the truth in its wake. Lena exhaled, her voice steady yet resonant. I don't just patch concrete walls. I mend the wounds of this place. In that instant, the unassuming woman, her hands trained on battlefields, stood revealed in full, compelling the astonished seals to see her for who she truly was. They realized how wrong they had been to judge her by appearances alone. She didn't need a uniform. Her skill and unbreakable spirit were weapons far more formidable. At 29 Palms, amid the searing desert heat and the unceasing thunder of gunfire, Lena Carver remained a shadow. But a shadow that, when all eyes closed, stood more fully present than anyone else. And the lingering question hung in the dry air. Now that they had glimpsed the depths of her strength, what was the greatest secret Lena still kept hidden? A pale streak of pink light broke over the horizon's edge, casting long shadows across the cracked concrete. Lena Carver arrived at the gates of the 29 Palms shooting range before the darkness had fully yielded to dawn. She snapped the lid tight on her coffee cup, where the milk foam had long since collapsed, releasing that familiar acrid aroma of late-night vigils. Only those who kept the hours know its taste. The tool bag at her side, each compartment, each pocket, was arranged with the precision of a magician's deck. Every screwdriver, every wrench, every tiny bolt lay waiting in its ordained place, ready to reveal the rare talent within. Down in Bay 4, rifles stood at attention like silent sentinels, abandoned by a target system that had been dead for months. SEALs trudged into the desert, rifles slung on their backs, hands manually coaxing targets into view, an hours-long ritual simply to burst holes in lifeless steel plates amid sand and rock. Lena offered not a single complaint. For her, every challenge was merely another canvas for exquisite craftsmanship. She stooped low and wormed her way beneath the scaffolding floorboards, the space as confining as a turtle's shell, cracking open. Her hand met the hydraulic piston with the keen scrutiny of a surgeon's eye, noting every trace of oil, every scratch, every rust-flecked spot. There was no magic, only tools. From her pouch, she withdrew a set of ultra-fine files, so minuscule that few even knew such instruments existed, and gently smoothed the steel, as though waking each cable from a long slumber. Her homemade laser gauge flickered alive in that narrow chamber, drawing a flawless reference line for the target's pivot. Beneath the flickering halogen, her every movement merged into a single heartbeat. Precision incarnate. 25 minutes. Time enough for any ordinary technician to still be fumbling amid the chaos of metal and grit. Yet for Lena, it was merely a standard test before the morning dew could even evaporate. When she withdrew her hands, the auto-target disc whirred to life, gliding back and forth level with the eye like a Swiss watch upon a gentleman's wrist. The motor's faint whine split the desert stillness, then crescendoed into a smooth mechanical symphony. A coach approached from behind, his tall silhouette etched against the shifting sands. His gaze traced the system's motion, then swung around to Lena, seeking explanation. "Who fixed this?" he asked, awe and respect woven into his tone. Lena did not rush to answer. She sat up straight, swept unseen steel fragments from her jeans, flicking away the fine sand like unsettled thoughts. A glimpse of a smile played at her lips, enough to convey that no words were required, only the fact that the job was done. "Just my work," she said, her voice as light as morning mist yet imbued with unshakable conviction, as if the technology in her hands had never known defeat. The maintenance Tier D badge on her chest beneath that thin vest assumed a new resonance. To office-bound technicians, it was merely a faded D in the ranking chart. But behind it lay oceans of experience and vaults of secrets known to few. Lena had once fought across some of the world's most demanding technical frontiers, from a forsaken airstrip in Kandahar to a lone radar station at the jungle's edge in Southeast Asia. She transformed fractures into living seams, restoring the soul of every machine that seemed ready to surrender. Now, as the daylight grew harsh and stretched across the desert like a crimson curtain, Lena hoisted her tool bag over her shoulder and slipped away from Bay 4, leaving behind a flawlessly functioning system and the awestruck gazes of those who had watched her craft. The auto-target motor continued its rhythmic hum, like the breath of a battle-hardened sentinel. They knew her existence, but none truly understood her. Lena Carver, keeper of secrets bound within every screw she ever turned to save her comrades' lives, left only the silence and the irrefutable proof of her skill. And when all was said and done, the last question hanging in that arid air remained: when and how would the greatest secret Lena guarded in the shadows at last step into the light? A dry gust of wind swept across the training grounds, lifting fine grains of sand into a swirling haze before my eyes. At the far edge of Bay 7, Shade, the veteran SEAL with smoke-stained eyes and time-etched wrinkles, sat silently on a splintered beam. He watched Lena Carver's figure flit beside a stack of battered steel targets, where the M4 had jammed just yesterday. In the flickering dawn light of the desert, each movement she made seemed drawn out in slow motion, precise and brimming with quiet confidence. Shade recalled how she had revived the auto-target system in only 25 minutes. Her hands operated like surgical pliers, every metallic component approached with absolute precision. Today, when Martinez, the head armorer, had frowned and decisively dumped the stuck M4 onto the maintenance bench, his voice laced with derision as he muttered, "This is my domain, not some wall patcher's." Shade merely smirked, offered no reply, and nodded Martinez away, leaving the rifle strewn among loose screws. Lena bent down, flung her tool bag aside, and let out a soft exhale, as if she had just finished a yoga session. She lifted the M4 onto her thigh, her deft fingers popping off the barrel lock cover and teasing apart each part. Beneath a thin film of engine oil and grime, the metal gleamed with polished silver. She withdrew the ultra-fine file she had painstakingly sharpened that morning and slid it into the locking pin, worn down to a razor's edge, stroking it gently like a sculptor refining marble. Shade leaned forward, riveted by her every gesture. The steel cables and gleaming gears fell into place under her hands as if composing a symphony. When she reassembled the firing mechanism and released her grip, the M4 responded with a soft click, each joint seating perfectly. A glint flashed along the barrel lock, and there, etched so delicately that only a seasoned gearhead would notice, was a tiny geometric emblem, a triangle nested within a circle. Shade swallowed hard, memories of Iraqi gun pits flooding back when he had once received a mystery weapon operating flawlessly amid the trenches. That rifle bore the same mark, its paint unlike any unit insignia he recognized. He had chased that signature through countless months, yet never traced it to its source. Now, before him, that same mark gleamed on the hands of this unassuming wall patcher. Martinez returned, eyes wide as he saw Lena shouldering the M4 and dry firing it in the desert hush. The muted click-click echoed like a whisper. He opened his mouth to speak, But Shade stepped in, laying a hand on Martinez's shoulder and inclining his head toward Lena. "She did it." Shade's voice was low yet carried clear. "And she's fixed more than we ever imagined." Lena pivoted, sweeping her gaze over the two seals, a faint brow lift marking her calm appraisal. Her gray shirt, plastered with sweat, clung to her back like a phantom, yet beneath it, her heart raced with purpose. She offered a small, almost shy smile as she hefted the rifle to chest level, a greeting equal parts humility and challenge. "I'm just doing my job," she said, her tone warm but resolute, as if to remind them that skill knows no specialty. Shade tilted his head, studying the subtle contours of her face, the eagle tattoo peeking out from under her sleeve, the fine scar trailing along her right hand's knuckles. He realized she was more than a mere wall patcher, more than a nameless war engineer. She might be the very phantom armorer who had slipped across battlefields, leaving flawless weapons in her wake. Part of him wanted to believe it. The rest simply stood in awe of her silent mastery. The desert remained unbowed beneath the sun's glare, currents of spent gunpowder drifting on the wind. Martinez said nothing further, offering only a grudging nod before stepping away, ceding the space to Lena and Shade. She lowered the rifle, ran a hand along its stock, and bent to gather her tools. Her gaze lingered on that tiny geometric mark, a silent testament to a past yet untold. Shade watched her form recede, a question stirring in his chest. Could Lena Carver, Tier D maintenance technician, auto-target savior, now the reborn armorer of his SEAL's weapon, actually be the mysterious fixer who had roamed war zones unseen? The greatest secret she kept was no longer behind her. It was the story still waiting to be told. Morning sunlight streamed through the rectangular window, carving a deep streak of light across the rough wooden workbench. Petty Officer First Class Ethan Cole, the living legend of the SEAL team, strode into the maintenance bay with measured ease, cradling his custom-built Scar H. The rifle's hefty frame gleamed coldly under the fluorescent lights, a treasured artifact none dared touch. Yet today, it lay silent, jammed at 300 meters, holding its breath at every inspection. Not a word escaped Cole's lips as he placed his calloused hands upon the steel bench and gently lowered the weapon. The metallic clank resounded sharply, tearing through the air thick with oil and singed rubber. Silence flooded the room, broken only by the steady pull of each man's breath. Lena Carver, her gray t-shirt soaked through with sweat and her maintenance Tier D badge glinting faintly, lifted her gaze, unflinching. In that instant, her quietude was both humble and profoundly weighty, the mark of a master craftsman. Cole remained mute, arms folded behind his back, posture as immovable as a statue. His eyes followed Lena as she knelt to place the Scar H on the rubber mat. A soft breeze slipped through the crack in the doorway, flipping the corner of the pneumatic schematic that lay upon the table, revealing the diagram of the air pressure system, the very heart of the malfunction. Lena retrieved a miniature flashlight from her chest pocket, its cool blue beam sweeping across the rifle's body, illuminating the faint battle scars etched into the metal. Under Lena's hands, the scar ceased to be mere steel and sprang to life, each pipe, valve, and chamber revealed as a component of a living organism. She removed the cover of the gas block and tilted her head, eyes scanning the junctions. Her hand trembled for a heartbeat, not from doubt, but from the acute awareness of the nuanced wear on the regulator valve. A single misplaced pin could shatter a round's trajectory. From her pouch, she produced a tool as fine as a needle, fashioned from an old surgical blade. and delicately inserted it into the narrow slot, smoothing away jagged metal fragments one by one. Slanting sunlight poured through the window pane, illuminating her hair with a radiant halo. For 40 seconds, Lena moved in hushed precision, the only sound the whisper of metal on metal and the soft click of gas escaping. No harsh clang, no hurried motion, only the absolute focus of someone who had stood before a broken machine countless times and restored it to perfection. When the regulator valve sealed flawlessly, Lena exhaled slowly, wiped the bead of sweat from her brow, and gently tightened the final screw. She set aside her tool, replaced the gas block cover, then tested the safety catch. A soft click rang out, like a rhythmic note announcing that compressed air now flowed unchecked. She raised the rifle, aimed at the target in the corner, and squeezed the trigger. A muted thud echoed as the round struck dead center, without a single millimeter of deviation. A ripple of quiet applause met her ears. Cole broke into a rare smile, the lines at the corner of his mouth flickering like a small flame. He shouldered the rifle, braced it against his shoulder, and fired a dozen more rounds in rapid succession, each round drilling the steel target at its 10 o'clock weak spot. Incredible, he finally breathed, his voice laden with reverence and surprise. No one's ever done it like you. One by one, the others turned their eyes to Lena, their gazes drawn to that flickering maintenance Tier D badge. They no longer saw her as a faceless shadow. Some nodded in deference, others stared, mouths agape. Yet, in that collective astonishment, one question blazed within each of them. Why had a man like Cole, a legend with over 100 missions, entrusted his prized Scar H to Lena from the very start? Lena set the rifle down and rolled up her sleeve, revealing the faded eagle tattoo on her forearm. Her eyes shone with quiet confidence and mystery. Technique doesn't depend on rank, she murmured, her tone soft yet unwavering. I just listen to what the weapon tells me. Cole looked at her, maintenance Tier D badge, then back into her dark, fathomless eyes, as if seeking something beyond those two simple words. He nodded slowly and extended his hand. We need you, Lena Carver. Far more than you know. In the hush cloaked by oil smoke and muted light, Lena clasped his weathered hand in hers, a momentary bond between legend and obscurity. And in the hearts of all who watched, a spark of conviction ignited. Sometimes, the greatest power lies in hands unburdened by rank, yet capable of forging true miracles. A frigid desert wind swept through the concrete corridors of 29 Palms, fanning rumors like wildfire. Lena Carver's personnel file was hauntingly blank. Master Sergeant Ryan Holt, a weapons specialist who had worn down his youth on these firing ranges, leaned back from his screen, determined to unearth any clue, but every entry lay as gray and empty as ash, save for two stark lines: high-level security clearance and SOTF, no contact. His fingers danced across the keyboard, probing for ancillary records, until a clandestine message from above blinked into view. Cease all inquiries immediately. Holt's brow furrowed and his hands trembled. This was no ordinary directive. Yet Lena Carver paid it no mind. She arrived early as always, setting her now cold coffee beside her toolkit, then bent to inspect scopes, adjust triggers, and patch every fissure in the wall. Each motion was a flawless symphony, not a single detail left wanting. not the faintest discordant note. Passing soldiers would abandon their own feeble attempts to fix their rifles and quietly lay weapons at her bench, no plea for assistance attached, only a silent faith in the hands without a name. By day, Lena said nothing beyond, "Let me know if there's anything else," and resumed her meticulous work. By night, she sat under the halogen lamp, steel fragments and discarded screw shells littering the floor as testament to her unerring precision. Holt had spied on her countless times, yet every cease and desist order hung over him like a curtain obscuring her past. He was left with one colossal question. How could someone without rank or records command such unwavering trust? One crimson-hued dusk, as the desert deepened to a blood-red glow, Shade, the veteran SEAL whose very nickname breathed mystery, happened upon the armory. Under wavering amber lights, he glimpsed Lena etching a small symbol into the barrel lock of an M4 she had just repaired. Her fingers moved with gentle certainty, revealing a triangle nested within a circle, identical to the mark Shade had once seen in Iraq on untraceable weapons. He drifted silently to her side and murmured, "You're still active, aren't you?" Lena did not raise her gaze. She completed her final stroke, tracing a thin line around the emblem, then set aside her tool. Her eyes flickered briefly, acknowledging everything while remaining resolute in concealment. "It's just maintenance," she replied, her voice as soft as morning mist, yet imbued with the weight of battle-scarred history. Nothing more, nothing less. Shade watched her, realizing that her slender hands held not merely mechanical expertise, but a lifetime of silent endurance and learning. He recalled secret shipments of weaponry to the rear and wondered if Lena had been the unseen hand behind them. Yet now, everything lay suspended like the unanswered question within that barrel lock. Would her deepest secret ever be fully revealed? At 29 Palms, the relentless churn continued. The roar of gunfire, the acrid tang of burnt powder, the scent of lubricants mingled with desert sand. Amid that chaos, Lena Carver stood firm, her gray t-shirt fluttering in the breeze, unseen yet no longer disregarded. Every rifle she touched sprang to life as if brand new. Each trigger pull rang crystalline through the night. Every wall she mended held steadfast, daring whatever challenge came next. In a world where the smallest detail, a millimeter's gap, the faintest scratch, could mean survival or doom, Lena Carver stood as living proof that true power requires neither badge nor title. Hit subscribe and share if you believe the quietest among us can make the greatest impact. Who do you think Lena really is? Leave your thoughts in the comments now.